Dude, I don't even know what this is going to be. I hate when somebody calls me. I just ended the first video where I ended it because somebody called me, and I'm like, damn man, you messing up my speech. You messing up my soapbox right here. So, what's the second uh phony argument coming from anti-gun people? Okay, here's one that I can't stand. I cannot stand, right? And I can't say it doesn't make sense. I can't say it's not a place of concern, but it's like, do you live in that much fear? Like, do you live in that much fear to where you can always come up with the worst case scenario in terms of like shit that doesn't even go down. Law abiding citizens going off and killing a slew of people. People with CCW. It'll be the Wild West in the streets, right? And they'll always, they'll do this with the whole high capacity magazine thing and this, that, and the third, like as though criminals are going to listen to the whole if I'm a criminal and I legally go and get a gun, do you think that I'm going to say, oh, I illegally got a gun, I'm illegally going to use a gun, but I'm going to follow the law and use whatever the law dictates is a legal magazine, which is only going to give me less bullets as a criminal. Who believes that that is going to do anything? But the thing is like there's always this coming up with the worst case scenario, right? Of like, okay, law abiding citizen, somebody goes and buys a gun, and and this will be the one that women use, and shoots his wife, and that does happen. That does happen. Or a guy goes and kills his whole family. That does happen, right? But there's also cases where women go off and then they kill their family or kill their husband. I mean, you got Steve McNair, you got that lady in Florida who blew her son's head off while they were at the range. Yes, guns kill people. That's the point. That's what they were designed for, right? And I understand that people have this issue with, and this is the problem with like if you look at guns on a statistical chart, there's so many other things that kill people before guns. It's like cancer's way up there, right? Automobile accidents is way above guns and homicides, right? Just way above it. Right. And there's like this whole, list of stuff that comes before guns, but everybody focuses on guns. And now as a pro gun community, I mean, admit the fact that, the issue that people have with guns is the fact that it's the idea that somebody at any given moment can just simply be mad or angry or whatever, grab a gun, a weapon used to kill people, and just simply go out there and do it. Okay? That's what unnerves people. That's what makes people, people who are anti-violence or, passively go through the world and think, positively and, because I love Jesus, that nobody else is going to commit an act of violence because the Lord will save me because, I go to church every Sunday and I couldn't raise my fist against a fly. There's people that think like that. They don't want to face the reality that the world is an ugly place. And the way that they look at it is if they don't have a gun because they don't want to use one, then the criminals shouldn't have guns, which the criminals shouldn't have guns, but they have it in their mind that if guns were to disappear, that they would be safer, right? As though violence didn't exist before the creation of guns. They in other words, there's always this framing things, in the context of keeping deadly weapons out of the hands of criminals, as opposed to keeping deadly weapons in the hands of people so that they can use it against criminals or protect themselves if the criminal element that always exists in society were to enter their life or enter their world. Okay? There's always this painting the scenario of the criminal that goes on a shooting spree, right? Or the drug dealers that are doing drive-bys and hit a little kid, right? There's always that example, but there's never the example of the person that actually defends themselves with a firearm, which the media does not report on, right? For all intensive purposes, I guess I would consider, or for a long time, I would consider myself liberal or socially liberal, or I don't even know if I put myself in the category of fiscally conservatives, but I can understand the fiscal conservatives more than I can understand the whole Bible bumping, other conservatives that are no different than your inner city minorities that they're both poor. They're both living in whether it's a rural person in Kentucky living in an ex-mining town or somebody in the urban city. They have the same issues, but that whole racial divide keeps them all separated and everything, and they're identifying on both sides with people who have money and wealth that they don't have, but they just picked a side, and the wedges are created. But in saying that, I'm just saying, I understand what people mean when they talk about liberal media, right? Because I got the app on my phone, and I see the NRA alerts and stuff like that, and every other day there is a woman defends against a home invader, somebody defends a criminal, somebody stops a robbery at a liquor store because this is the type of stuff that the media does not showcase. Okay, you got to go to the NRA to find it. And these are real stories. It's not like the NRA is pulling it out of its ass and making it up. But when you go over to, if you just were to rely on the media, all you would get were what? Violent acts committed by criminals, violent acts, and it would leave you with the question of, where are all these criminals getting these guns, right? That's what it would leave you with, right? If you were the type of person, you weren't into guns, you were just casually going about your life, that's the question that it would leave in your head. Where are they? We need to get rid of these guns and ban these guns. Because all you ever hear are negative associations with guns. You only hear about when criminals use guns. You don't hear about when the good guys use the guns. Okay? You don't hear about somebody stopping a home invasion or a woman stopping herself from being raped because she had a gun on her person. You don't hear about that. They don't promote that. Okay? It would be nice even if there was some parity. Hey, show me the typical crime that we always see, right? Because of some gun violence, because of drug dealers, or because of somebody killed their family because they had a dispute or argument. It'd be one thing if they showed that in conjunction with showing the heroic deeds or sometimes I don't even know if I want to call them heroic. I know pro-gun people always want to say these are heroes and everything. No, it's not a matter of being a hero. It's a matter of having the firearm just in case shit happens. There's nothing beautiful, there's nothing triumphant about killing another human being, regardless of how heroic people want to claim it to be, regardless of how people want to say, oh, he killed this person because because there's always this painting the criminals as evil people. Which I don't believe most criminals to be evil people. I believe them to be a byproduct of the situation that society has created. As Teddy Roosevelt once said, a citizen can only be as good as I think something about his pay being above the standard of living. And we have huge economic disparities in this country that nobody wants to address. Most of the crimes that exist are economic crimes. Okay, most of the robbing and the stealing and all that other stuff, right, are economic crimes. When somebody knocks over a liquor store, what do you think they're knocking it over for? They're knocking it over for the money. Maybe they have a drug addiction. Maybe they got fired from their job and they're forced to do something like that, right? I understand people say, oh, well, there's choices and options out there. Bullshit. Nobody wants to help each other, and I could go on a long speech all about that. Okay? But the reality is that a lot of people are grow up in screwed up situations, and as a society we help create that, and we help that flourish. And so we go to the simple route of saying, oh, Guns, guns, guns. We need guns to protect ourselves. And I'm all for that. But at the same time, I'm like, but what about the root cause of the problem? Okay, what about the these social issues that are caused by economic issues that exist? Nobody wants to address that. Nobody wants to address that. That's why I got so pissed off when they went and started talking about Sandy Hook, and everybody wants to evaluate everything that's going on with Sandy Hook. But then when you get to it's inner cities with mostly black people, nobody wants to examine that. Nobody wants to look at the root cause of that. Everybody wants to say, oh, those are moral issues. No, motherfucker, they're economic issues. If I'm lying, please direct me to all the black kids in the suburbs, with upper middle class incomes who are shooting each other and gang banging like you see in the inner city. Again, it has nothing to do with morality or spiritual. I guess Jesus is in the suburbs, right? I guess God is in the suburbs and he's not in the inner city, and that's why these young black males are shooting each other in the inner city. Again, it's an issue of money. It's not an issue of morality. But people don't want to look at that as the true root cause and problem.